All right. So again, my name is Sky Parker. I'm with the agency director at CBR. We do all of the payroll, HR, benefit administration, and now we are rolling out a new 401k plan. So the purpose of the meeting is I'm going to give an overview of the plan, go over some housekeeping items as far as the plan design, the eligibility, and then we'll go over the platform with Voya and then go over the investments. If you have any questions as we go along, please ask me. I'll have questions available for link afterwards. And as I mentioned, this will be recorded and sent out for anybody that couldn't make it, had to drop off early or miss something. So first, with that being said, you should see my information on the screen. I'm going to be your best point of contact for anything 401k related. From an administration standpoint, we're going to handle enrollment, administration, and investments. So as I go over the housekeeping items, I'll give you the contact information with Voya. The good thing is they're open till 9 p.m. Eastern, and they're going to be more for maintenance items like resetting passwords. They can give you balances over the phone, things like that. I did want to give an overview of the company that we're dealing with. Voya Financial is one of the top record keepers. They have over 5 million customers, one of the top 3 in size nationally, with close to 50,000 plan sponsors, and they have a very good retention rate. I think you're going to enjoy the technology. And the one thing before we get into the fun stuff, I'm going to send everything in a follow-up email. David, I'll send it to you and you can send it out to the employees. But I did want to put together a simple page that kind of went over the housekeeping items or the plan highlights. So the first thing to notice from an eligibility standpoint is you do need to be 21 years of age and you do have to have met 1 year of service. So that year of service is from your original date of hire. So if you've been with the company already for a year, you would be eligible to start as early as the second quarter. So if this is something you wanted to start participating, you could go on this month and start deferring in April because you're eligible to enter the first day of a quarter. So what that means is it's very flexible. You know, if you're deciding over the summer you want to start contributing, you could start in July, you could start in October after you've met eligibility, or you could obviously start on the January of any given year.
So Sky, for everybody eligible right now, our next payroll, well, we got a payroll coming up here on the payday on the 20th of March, and then April 5th. That would be the new quarter. So that paycheck, everybody could start deferring?
Absolutely. That is correct.
Okay.
Yep. So the way that the plan works is this is only for W-2 wages, and I'm going to give some examples. But from an employee perspective, you can actually defer up to 90% of compensation. This is what is deemed a safe harbor plan, and David, I'm going to send you the safe harbor notice that you can distribute it as well. What that means from a matching contribution is that once you're eligible and you start participating, there is a company match of up to 100% of your first 4%. And I'll give some examples on that to show. But from a vesting schedule, I want to differentiate and go back here that if the company were to make any profit sharing or matching contributions, there is a vesting schedule. Your employee contributions and specifically the safe harbor match are vested right away. So I just want to make that differentiator. I do want to cover distributions. I know that this is a newer company plan. The company hasn't had one in a little while. So I want to go over distributions. And I want to talk about it as if you had a previous employer-sponsored plan that you have assets before you came over to Grimm Collections. And I'm going to go over the same 4 options that if you did participate in this plan and you either severed your employment or you retired, you would have the same 4 options. So real quick, you can keep your money with a previous record keeper. I don't recommend that long term because if the employer makes changes or they terminate a plan and they can't get a hold of you, That money does go to a state fund. I know in Arizona, that's a multi-million-dollar fund. I know in most states, perhaps Oregon, Washington, those are multi-million-dollar funds. So that wouldn't be my long-term goal. Number two, another one I wouldn't recommend, but you can, when you hear the word distribution, that means that you're taking cash from the plan and two things happen. The first is it's taxed as ordinary income. The goal of the 401k plan is at some point in time to pull out a after-tax amount that's taxed at that point systematically. Whenever you take a partial or a full distribution, it's taxed that year. The second to be aware of is if you are under the age of 59 and a half, there's also a 10% early withdrawal penalty. Now, if you need cash, you need cash. I do want to let you know where it says hardship, that this plan does allow for hardship, as most do. That's where you can fill out a short form if you have excessive medical bills, facing foreclosure on a house, something of that nature. You can get the 10% penalty waived if you're under 59 and a half, but it'll still be reported as ordinary income. You'll get a 1099. Option number three, you can roll the money from a previous employer-sponsored plan into a self-directed IRA. This could be you set it up with a bank, a financial advisor. We have resources. You're rolling the money with no tax consequences from a previous employer-sponsored plan to a new one. And then the fourth and final option is if you like this employer plan or you go to a new employer that you like the plan, you can roll it from a previous employer-sponsored plan over to a new one. Okay? But during your working years, the last two items, you can only access the money one of two ways. The first one is in-service distributions. So if you have reached the age of 59 and a half, you're still working, contributing, you can actually take an in-service distribution. And then the only other way is through loans. Okay, CBR administers these loans. You have to have a minimum loan amount of $1,000. You can loan up to 50% of a vested balance. So that means that you're not eligible for a loan until you have at least $2,000 vested balance. You can have up to 2 outstanding loans, up to 50% of an account balance to a max of $50,000. CBR will set up a 5-year, up to a 5-year reamortization schedule. You can pay them back through payroll. Again, it's not the first place I would borrow money, but know that that's available, and that's going to be the only way to access it up until age 59 and a half without a qualifying event. Okay?
Hey, Sky, question real fast. So you use the word borrow against your vested. Now, when you say vested, does that mean, let's say I kind of picture this 401, it's got 3 buckets. You've got the employee contributions, the employer contributions, and then I have a discretionary third bucket that I could make contributions in. What are we when somebody borrows, are they borrowing from all 3 of those funds or just one of them, or how do you
Yep, great question. So what I said is you can borrow up to 50% of a vested value. So what that means, you could borrow from buckets 1 and 2, the safe harbor that's vested right away. But if you hadn't met the vesting schedule of any discretionary income, that's a 6-year graded. So that's what this schedule means. If you made a profit share or a matching, and I've only been with the company 3 years, I would only have 40% of that bucket 3 available for borrowing or access to, or where it's my money. If I terminate in my employment, that goes back to the employer. So to answer your question, you could only borrow from buckets 1 and 2.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, great question. All right, well, that was the hard part and the housekeeping items. Any other questions on this piece? I'll hand this out. This is a 1-pager. Well, it's 2 pages front and back. Okay. We knocked that out. This is the notice that I'll send to you, David, that you can distribute. So this is the safe harbor notice that we do have to get out to the employees. It kind of reiterates what I just said and goes into a little bit more detail about the opportunity, the employee rights, the distributions, so a little bit more detail.
Now, is this 401k, that can be under Grimm Collections, or will it be under CBR with our contractual relationship? What is it? Is it?
Yep. Yeah, great question. Great question. So CBR is the plan sponsor, the trustee, and we provide the advisement and obviously do the payroll. But the contract is written, David, as Grimm Collections has an account with Voya where you choose the eligibility and the plan design. The reason that's important is if you ever got to a point where you said, hey, we don't need the payroll and HR anymore, you could still have this contract with Voya. We would just transfer over to you the plan sponsorship and trustee. But for the purposes of this enrollment kit and going online, it's going to have the company name. It'll say Grimm Collections.
Okay, so we'll be assigned a new tax ID number, a unique federal number for this?
No. So the way the plan is set up now, CBR takes care of the filings, all of the Department of Labor filings, the IRS filings. So we file all under our taxpayer ID number. So you're not going to be on public record with the Department of Labor, so you don't need to worry about that. The only one that's on file is with Grimm Collections, and that's for the purpose if you ever broke out of the CBR plan to a standalone, you could do that directly with Voya.
Okay. All right.
Yep. So, but for the purposes of the enrollment kit, I'm going to send this to everybody as a PDF. I'm going to touch on a couple things, but I'm going to touch on them as I go through the presentation. So I'm going to go back to this PowerPoint, and now we can kind of talk about the platform, how to register, enroll, go over some of the tools and some of the investments that you'll have to choose from. But the first thing, so real quick, if you're newer to a 401k plan, I do want to go over some 101 stuff real quick. Voya has some really nice tools to help for retirement. But once you make the decision, you're eligible, you start participating, you're going to set a savings rate or a deferral amount. So the first step really, once you make the decision, this is a paperless benefit. You're going to go to this website specifically. This is also in the enrollment kit. And the unique plan ID to Grimm Collections is how you're going to start the registration process. So you're going to need this unique number and you're going to need this verification number. So this will get you started in the online platform. CBR has already downloaded all of the payroll information, so everybody's already in there. It's just a registration and a verification process. I had mentioned with Voya, this is another key number. Now that your plan is live and ready for enrollment, the important thing about this number, I had mentioned that they're open until 9 p.m. Eastern. Again, more for housekeeping items like resetting passwords, you're having trouble logging in, you want to see your account balance. The other cool thing is when you call this number, you get a registered rep. So what that means is if for whatever reason you're locked out of the account and you're looking at the market like a week we had this week, and you want to move some money into cash or a fixed account, they can actually do that over the phone. And the reason I bring that up, going back to my contact information, is I cannot do that over the phone. And if you call me, my voicemail will tell you to not leave any trade requests because I cannot execute them as the advisor. But if you're in that situation, Voya can actually do that for you. So I want to give you that information. That's valuable. But the first step is to enroll, register, set up your account. This is where you want to assign a beneficiary. You want to go through and put your preferences. Do I want to get a quarterly statement emailed to me? Do I want it mailed to me? This is where you're going to set your initial savings level. So when I talk about a deferral, this is your contribution rate, which more popular is a percentage. So you say I want to save 1%, 2%, 3% of my W-2 income, but it still allows for a flat dollar amount. So if, some people still do the David Ramsey zero budget and you say, hey, I can defer $26 a pay period, you can also put in a flat dollar amount.
So that will be talk. So Sky, once everybody, so this is ready to go now, people can start enrolling. Is Voya going to talk to payroll about fixed percentages or a fixed amount? Is there going to be a handshake communication thing, or are we going to have to do this twice? We set it up with payroll and then we set it up with Voya.
Nope, you're going to like this part. So if you look on the enrollment kit, once you go through that original registration process, I'm going to encourage everybody that has a smartphone to get this app, because as a paperless benefit, everything that you're going to be able to do, you're going to be able to do online. So you're going to be able to change investments 24/7. You can change deferrals from your smartphone app. So if you go on and you say, I want to save 5% of my income, and I set it at 5%, you set it from your app, Voya alerts CBR, and we'll set it up in that first payroll. If you go on this month for that check on April 5th, we'll set up that deferral. So the employee is going to be able to control what they want to save from the smartphone app. So if they want to make a change, they just go to the smartphone app or online, and they make the deferral change, and Voya talks to CBR.
Okay, that's pretty cool. That's a lot different than what I'm used to in the past. It'd always have to go through me, the employer. We would have to keep track of all that stuff.
You no longer have to keep track of that, so that'll be nice. Yep. You'll get the reports, and so it's basically a 2 to 3 business day process. Yeah, so here's what I would say, and I'm glad you brought that up. So if, I'm sitting on a Wednesday and I need to make a payroll change for a Friday paycheck, probably not going to happen in time. So in those cases, that's where you would send me an email. So I got it electronically and say, hey, Sky, I really need to, change my 3% and turn this off. We can take an electric and do it manually. So I'm glad you brought that up. Know that this process is a 2 to 3 business day process. So you're going to go online, you're going to alert Voya, they're going to send the report to CBR, and CBR is going to set it up based off of those instructions.
Cool.
Yep.
I like that.
Great. So here's, this is the only homework that I want to give employees if they haven't done this in a while. David, if you're probably my age or older, you may recall 30 to 60 days for your birthday, Social Security Administration used to send out this green packet. And in this green packet, based off of my working years, it would say something of the nature, if you retire at age 62, based off what you've done so far, you can pull out X per month, and that's a pension every month for the rest of your life. And then it would have something like a sliding scale, where if you wait till age 68, you can pull out more a month, and that was Social Security. So they don't send that out anymore. You actually have to go get it online. This is the website. So you go to this website right here, and you go to My Social Security. They ask you some questions. You put in your Social Security number, and you go through a vetting process. And once you log in, set your credentials, then it's actually going to show you electronically that green statement. So if you want to see where you're at, and look at Social Security, I encourage you, if you haven't taken a look, to take a look at that. The reason why is that's going to be an income resource.
Bring that screen up one more time, this guy.
Yep.
I see the URL.
Yep. So the URL is right here. It's just ssa.gov. And when you click on that, it goes here, the ssa.gov. And then you just put sign up. You're going to go to sign up in My Social Security. And that's where you're going to create a new account.
Okay.
You're going to go through, I agree. You're going to put your Social Security number. It's going to pull up some credit history, and there's going to go through a verification process before you set up a username or password.
Yeah, I missed those forms. How long has it been since they mailed those out? Has it been a long time?
It's been about 15 to 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So you guys all have to go get that. That'll be homework. And the reason that's important is if you're not saving any money, that's your retirement plan. The government's already taken about 5% of every one of your checks. We know it's a broken retirement plan. So if you don't feel confident about that piece, this employer retirement account is going to give you a nice opportunity. So that would be another where if you look at that Social Security number and you don't like it, then saving through payroll is going to be a very nice situation for you to start saving. Another one is when I get to the software, you can actually put other accounts in here if you want to see projections. So if you have brokerage accounts, Roth IRAs, you can put all of this into the software that you'll be prompted with. And the cool thing is, especially if you use the smartphone app, the end product is every time I open up my Voya smartphone app, the first thing it shows me on the home screen is it says, based on what you're doing now, this is how much you can pull per month when you retire, when you told us you wanted to retire. And then it says, here was the goal that you put. So if I'm short of that goal, it's something tangible I can see. I might be more inclined to raise it 1%. Maybe I got to push out my retirement and back a little bit on the matrix. But you'll have this software. And the reason that's powerful is psychologically, one of the hardest things to do is to save today through my payroll for my future self. Highest percentage are paycheck to paycheck. We all have bills, we get through. So if that's a hard concept, but if I can tangibly see and get disciplined to why I'm saving and see the long-term result projections, it's a pretty powerful tool. So you'll be prompted with this software. I would encourage you to take a look at it, put in your goals, put how much you're saving, and just see what the projections look like. But do the Social Security website one so you can see where you're at now if you're not saving anywhere else, so that you can put that into your savings plan.
So you log into the Social Security thing, you see what your distributions can be at this time, and then you plug that number into the Voya app, and it keeps track of that?
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. It's pretty slick software. You got it.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay. So how the plan works, let's go over some advantages to an employer-sponsored plan, why it's a good place to save. The first one is, unlike Social Security, you have control over these savings. This is a self-directed plan where I'm going to go over the investment options you have, but you are able to choose how much and how to invest. So you have complete control. The other thing is that it saves automatically. History has shown that dollar cost averaging, or saving systematically per paycheck, where you're buying stocks high and low, is one of the best systematically ways to invest. So having it automatically come out of your paycheck, it helps lower your taxable income. So again, your deferrals are pre-tax before any state or federal are taken out. And whatever you end up saving on a calendar year, you lower your taxable income that much. It grows tax deferred. And then the idea is when you go to take it out, to pull it out systematically, as the Voya app will show, and then that's when you pay the ordinary income. So some other reasons to save, money's all yours, we covered that. So let's go over what the plan offers. We had mentioned on the vesting being 100%. Let's see what else I got, 19. We had mentioned how you could access the money only through hardship withdrawals and loans. Studies show that for a healthy retirement, you should save anywhere between 8 and 15%. And I want to give you an example. So if you could get to a point where you're saving 4%, the company is matching 4%, you're right on the cusp of greatness. So the cool thing about that is where the government is falling short, your employer is basically meeting you halfway. So, if everyone can try to get to a goal where you're deferring 4% of your income, I'll do some quick math. Let's say our biweekly check is $1,500. 4% of that is $60 per check. So what that means, if I can get to a point where I'm pulling $60 out of a $1,500 biweekly check, the company is matching their $60. I have $120 going in per check. If you can build up and get to that point, this is saying you're going to be in pretty good shape. And this is a good illustration. So the company is being very gracious. They're rolling out a top 3 record keeper plan. The technology is phenomenal. The matching contribution, the service, the loans, the access. The only thing they can't give you is time. So this is simply showing for the younger crowd, someone who's age 25, let's say they're saving $50 a month, the company's doing $50 a month. they're going to be much better shape than a 45-year-old that's saving 3 times as much. So the power of, growing tax deferred compound interest is a beautiful thing. So this is why we really encourage you, even if it's a small amount and you're younger, to use the software so that you can see those type of goals. Okay. So we talked about everything. Now, you make the decision, you register, you set a deferral. After you've, assigned a beneficiary, customize your profile, the next decision is how to invest. So we'll close the presentation by going over the investments. Okay, this plan is going to cater to several types of investors, but I want to go over give you an overview of 3 different ways that you can invest in this plan before we break it down. The first one, when you go register for the first time, is this one says, give me advice to get there, have a professional take the lead. So you'll be prompted with this if you're interested in. We do have a professional money manager. We've hired a firm called Morningstar. They've been in the industry a long time. They have a very good track record. And you can actually take part in this service. And, if you don't want to do it, you can opt out right away or at any point in time. But this is what the service entails. The service does have a cost. So the cost is 60 basis points of your assets, or 60% of 1% in English. But here's what it provides. They're going to provide professional investment selection. They're going to recommend appropriate savings levels for you. They're going to give you retirement goals. They monitor your account quarterly. And the cool thing, if you're a newer investor, they supply regular progress reports. So it's very educational. This is a very good option. They help you pick out your portfolios. So this is a good service that you could either use right away, see if you like it, but you can opt out at any time.
Sky, on that, is that a robot-y kind of thing, or do we get the opportunity to actually talk to an advisor, or is it just in the...
That's a robot-y type thing. I'm the advisor, so if you don't want to go through the robot-y thing and do it systematically, then you're going to talk to me, and I'll go over that piece too. So
okay.
So that's a robo-advisor. If you want to take advantage of that, I will say Morningstar is a very good company. They've been around for a long time. They have a very good track record. So the models that they'll put you in are very solid based on how you answer the questions. Option number 2, this one says, guide me, choose from predefined options. So what these are, and this is actually your default investment option. So if you don't pick your own investments, this is what's going to get picked for you. These are called target date funds. And the way that these work is based off of your age. This is a hands-off approach. It's going to use 65 as a target date. And as you get closer to that date, Voya is going to pick all of your asset classes for you, the large cap, small cap, what's going to be in cash based off of your age. They're going to rebalance it quarterly. And as you get closer to that target date, it's going to become more conservative, meaning that they're going to be shifting out of equities into more conservative investments like government securities, fixed income, bonds, things of that nature. The thought process behind that is, if I'm within, 5 to 7 years of that date, I'm in the most conservative portfolio. So let's say I was 62 years old today, I would have been in a conservative portfolio. So if we would have had a week like we've had in the last week, if I'm 45, I'm okay because I have the time horizon to get back to where I was. If I needed to pull that money in, the next 3 years and I just lost 20% of my portfolio, we don't want people in that situation. So this is a hands-off approach. This is the default approach. This is what you're going to get if you don't choose your own investments or you don't use the money manager, okay? So option number 3 says, get there myself, choose my own investment mix. So this is basically self-directing. The cool thing about that is it's a nice 30-fund lineup. We have multiple money managers. We're going to have some really good options. But if you're a newer investor and you choose to self-direct, especially if you come to me. I'm going to make you do one of these if you haven't done one before, and it's called a risk tolerance questionnaire. So what this does, I'll click on this link, and it's really going to give you a couple things. It's basically going to ask you questions about your time horizon, your goals, your risk tolerance, your financial expertise. But if you go through that, it's really going to show you two things. Let me show you an example. So if you're self-directing and you go through, it's going to show you, based on how you answer the questions, A, what your risk tolerance is. So are you conservative, moderate, or are you aggressive? But B, which I think is more important, is it's also going to give you a model portfolio and a recommendation on which asset classes and percentages to have. Here's what I mean by that. So on this slide where it says asset class key, these are all of the different assets that you can invest in. So we have stability of principal, that's like a money market. If you hear market analysts say, I'm going to go into cash, or I'm going to be on the sidelines, that's what this is. We have bonds, which are like government securities, still pretty conservative. And then we get into equities. So we have different tiers of equities. So we have large cap, we have value and growth. The top holdings in these type of companies, and I'll give an example, are going to be probably companies we've heard of, typically with 10 billion in assets or more. We have mid cap, which are typically $2 to $10 billion in assets. We have small cap, which are under 2 billion in assets. And then we have specialty. So there's like real estate funds, environmental friendly funds, things like that. And then we have global international. I call this the emotional asset class. So what this means to you is, let's say even if you go through here and you score aggressive, this is showing you in this model that even if you score aggressive, we still want you to diversify. So I'd mentioned historically dollar cost averaging is the best way to put away money. Diversifying your assets is very important. So we do want to invest in all the different asset classes, but this has it weighted. So even if I score aggressive, it's saying I still shouldn't have more than 30% of my portfolio with funds in this asset class. Okay? So this will give you a good roadmap. If you get to a point where you're self-directing, I can definitely help guide you through this process. And I can definitely, I know you guys are distant, but I usually set up meetings like this online. And if you get to that point and you want my help, I will definitely make you go through one of these so I can give you the different ways to invest based on how you score. Okay?
So Sky, let's say somebody scores in the conservative kind of bucket there, maybe the last one. Does that mean, yep, okay, is there a fund that everybody gets into that disperses all those monies? Or okay, I'm conservative, that means here's all the 325 funds I've got to choose myself to be in the conservative portfolio, or is it done for me? That you pick all the funds.
You don't use the money manager and you score conservative, you're going to have options. So Vanguard is going to have a lineup of portfolios based off your risk tolerance. But if you go self-direct and you score conservative and you want to pick your own funds, this is just saying when you go through to pick your funds, this is what we're recommending. We think you should have 15% in the money market, and we think you should have 60%. So you're going to go down here to the bond asset class, and these are laid out beautifully online or from the smartphone. It'll say, here's the 4 different funds in this class. So you said, all right, I got 60%. If I really like one of the money managers, I could put all 60% in there, or maybe I'm going to put 20% in 3 because I like American funds and I like Vanguard. And I clicked on the fund, I did a little research. You're either going to have options to do index portfolios for you. We use Vanguard, or you can pick your own funds, but this is just going to be a roadmap to help you out.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Good question. Okay, so we covered that. I'm going to close on some more details in investments, but this page is just showing you that when I was going over the distribution options, if you do have a previous qualified plan that you want to consolidate with this plan, Voya does have a rollover team. As a matter of fact, if you call me, I can actually get you a dedicated person to help out if you choose that option. And then I know we didn't get good participation on this call, but I want to go over this resource, which is awesome. If you click on that, this is a Voya Learn live on demand. So you can actually watch now. You can schedule and go on to a live session. So in addition to the recording of this call, they have all these different live sessions on different topics: emergency savings, saving and spending. These are all the featured ones. So Voya's got budgeting tools. These are the financial wellness assessments that I was talking about. They have classes on budgeting, financial wellness, different demographics. They go over protection. And all of these are going to guide you to a lot of those resources that they use for projections. So Voya is very hands-on on these type of things. So I want to let you guys know that you have this resource.
Is that a two-way conversation, or is it just like pre-recorded videos? Is it really live? You can interact with someone at noon?
Absolutely. Just like we're doing now, they're going to give you a schedule of live ones that you can register for and join.
Pretty cool.
Yep. You can go on there and say, hey, I have a safe harbor plan. And you can go on and go over all of the tools that Voya has, and it's a pretty interactive deal. Yep.
And you're participating with a bunch of other people, right? It's just not one-on-one. You could be kind of a chat group of folks.
Yeah, if you want to do one-on-one on investments, I'd be your best bet.
Okay.
Yep. And where I'm going to close is on this enrollment kit. It's got all the plan highlights and everything that we went over. It goes over that My Retirement Overview, so that's the software that you're prompted with. I'd highly encourage you to take a look at that. But where I want to focus, so there's a good page on page 31. So this is a snapshot of all of the mutual funds, all the investment options that are available. So the cool thing is, when you look at this online, two things. A, these are all going to be hyperlinks. And if you click on them, this is where I'm going to close. I'm going to show you an example. It'll pull up the Morningstar report and tell you all about that fund. The second thing that's cool, it's going to take all of these investment options and put them into asset classes. So for example, if you say, hey, I want to go into cash, it's going to have a fixed account. These are all of our target dates. And then it's going to divide these all into large cap, small cap, mid cap, specialty. But what I want to show you is it's a very diverse A-rated lineup where you have multiple money managers from Goldman Sachs to American Funds, Vanguard, Columbia. So you have a very diverse fund lineup, but you're going to have A-rated funds in all of the different asset classes. So where I was going, if you click on this, and it's obviously better online, but all the end of the book is if you click on a fund, this is what it looks like. Let me find a popular fund. I'll show you how these read. And this kind of ties in with that risk tolerance questionnaire, because you can see that it shows the little portfolio analysis and how each of the funds are weighted. So it's going to have one of these for each fund. Let me show. So you had mentioned, so here's the risk-based funds. So you can see that Voya has a couple of conservative portfolios where they pick the funds for you. They have the target date ones. I saw a couple with Vanguard.
This guy, it's been years since these pages look familiar to me. I remember my dad used to get Morningstar, and I kind of looked through it. It hasn't changed much. But I'm curious on the app. My recollection of Morningstar, we get this thing once a month or every 2 weeks or something. Is this a live feed? Like when we're seeing all these percentages and recoveries and stuff like that, is it more live now versus something that a snapshot that took place last month or last quarter or last week?
Yeah, great question. You're going to see the last quarter. But here's where it's going to be a tool. So let's say you go through, you do a risk tolerance questionnaire, you see what kind of investor, and you get a sample portfolio. And let's say I'm looking in the large cap. So it says maybe I can put 40% in large cap. So when I click on this, this is the most popular fund. So if I click on this Vanguard fund, I just want to show you how it reads. So the information to answer your question is going to be from the last quarter. But when I click on this, the first thing that comes up is it says it gives me an investment objective and strategy. So I just want to make sure that's in line with what my goals are and how I scored. But then also you have that portfolio that says, okay, these are all US stocks. This is just the top Fortune 500 company. So if you open up your smartphone app, that Black Stocks app, you see S&P index, that's what this fund is. So if I'm invested in here, whatever that app is saying in real time, that's what I'm doing that day. But it shows you a breakdown of the portfolio, and then it'll show you the top companies. So I mentioned in a large cap, 10 billion and plus, I'm going to recognize these companies. So, you know, top holdings are Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook. So I want to get more focused on how these read. They don't change a lot per quarter, but you can go to the live Morningstar feed to, you know, to see those type of things. You know, it's going to have the ticker symbols for those that are really hands-on. But this is more of a, I'm going to click on it. I want to make sure the investments and objective strategy are in line with what I'm doing. I want to look at the portfolio analysis on that pie and say, okay, this is where I'm going to put some large cap and a percentage. And then maybe I'll use these for any differentiators to any other money managers in that asset class. You know, maybe I'm going to compare it to an American Funds or a ClearBridge and decide what percentage of my portfolio I'm going to put in each investment option within that asset class.
Okay.
So some pretty good tools. You know, you may start off with a money manager. Just, you know, if you're a new investor, it's a very good educational piece. A lot of people like the target date funds because they're hands off. But when you get to a point where you want to pick your own funds or self-direct, that's when you're more off to using these type of tools.
So now the Voya app, is it going to give us some additional information about our funds, about you know, real-time balances, or maybe the day before or after, you know, before the market balances? Is it hacked into that, or okay? Yep. You can see all the funds, the classifications.
Absolutely. When you log into your app, you know, first it's going to show if you did the software, it'll give you the projection. But right when you log in, it'll show you your balance as of close of business the day before. And then from the app, you can go into your contributions if you want to make a change in how much you're saving. They actually have a link to the Social Security website. I'm looking at it. But when I click on my balance, it's going to show me how I'm allocated. If I want to make any changes on my investments, I can do it right then. It'll show my balance per fund, my personal rate of return up to the you know, the close of business day yesterday from a monthly. It'll show my balance by source, how much money I put in, how much the company's put in. So 90% of what you'll need, you'll be able to see from the app.
Okay. How about the fees, different funds for fees? If people are moving money around more so than they should be, you know, they're just thinking around. Are all those kind of fees pretty self-explanatory or visible, transparent?
Absolutely.
Or is it?
Absolutely. Yep. So they're going to see those. They're going to see the fees on their quarterly statements. But also when they're looking at the investments, it'll show the expense ratio for each investment. So obviously the money management is higher. You know, typically Vanguards are on a little bit lower. But the cool thing is there's no fees to go in and out of funds. So if I change from a large cap to a small cap fund, there's no fee to do that. There's just an expense ratio based off of the money manager for that investment that I choose.
Okay, and those funds get paid quarterly, you say?
Yeah, so you get the statement quarterly. All of the fees are annualized, but you'll see it come out quarterly. So, for example, if I'm an employee on the plan, it'll say something like, in that quarter, you put away $300, the company matched $200, you made or lost this in the market, and then based off your expense ratios, $1.37 came out. So they'll put the expense ratios that you'll see online into hard dollars, and you'll actually see it on the quarterly statement.
Okay. So if anybody wants to contact you and ask for some advice, will you have access to that employee's account so you kind of get a nice picture overview of what's going on? Okay.
Absolutely. 100%. Yep. So I'm always the best first point of contact. Again, if it's something maintenance, Voya is open till 9 p.m. Eastern. They're a good resource. But even if somebody has a question and wants to take out a loan, I personally don't do that, but I'm the first point of resource to get them to the right person.
Okay. Let's see. So can we start? So once we start registering, I know some of us might want to just kind of be a little antsy and get in there and start exploring. Even though if we're setting up under one kind of scenario, we change our mind next week and then change our mind again, is that okay until we go live with the payroll? Okay.
No, I would encourage it. Because now that the plan is live, Voya is going to start sending out PIN numbers. So if people go register, they send out a PIN number for security purposes. So start playing around, looking at the investments, do all the tools, do all that now. If you want to start participating in the plan right away, you want to have it all set, have your deferral set, so that the first pay period in April, we're pulling that amount and you're contributing.
Okay, so it's up to the employees to do their part to enroll. I'm not taking anything around to their desk and distributing forms or applications. Everybody's got to do that on their own.
Yep. So after the call, when I convert this to a YouTube link, I'm going to send the enrollment kit. And this slide up here is page 1 of the enrollment kit. So when that employee is ready to save, this is on them to go to that website and start the registration process.
Okay, and it all communicates back to CBR and payroll.
Yep, and CBR has already given them all the payroll information, so the registration process is basically just finding, accessing through security the information.
Okay, and on paydays, is it pretty fast the money gets over to Voya, if not the same day for purchase investment, or is there a delay?
So every Monday, the investments are sent. So if you were paid today, that investment would be sent Monday by Tuesday. So it's the following Monday is when that deferral is sent based on the pay period.
Okay. Okay.
Yep, so that plan number is the only thing that they're going to need. Right away, I'm going through the prompt right now, and it shows this is what they need to get started. And then what's been downloaded, this is where they're going to start with their social security number, date of birth, and zip code, and start getting started. There it is, Grimm Collections Incorporated.
Okay. So it's not going to be under our account. Well, it's technically it's Account Managers Inc. DBA Grimm Collections, but that I don't know if that I'm not worried about that unless that's going to cause me some IRS issues. But
yeah, that's just for Voya's platform. If you ever wanted to change, you just shoot me over an email and I can change it with the record keeper. Voya's just holding the assets to the record keeper, so that's more of what the employees will see.
Okay, and for the other company, Court Account Management, is it the same IDs and and verification number? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to getting involved in that. So if anybody needs some time to talk to you, I'm sure you're a busy guy and prefer set up appointments, but how do you like to schedule things when people want to have a one-on-one with you?
Yep, I would ask that they just send an email right here requesting. That'll go right to my email address, and I'll get back to them with my soonest availability, and we usually set up a little online and go through it that way.
Okay, all right.
And my information is right here, but I'm also going to send the follow-up email with all the information. So you're just going to click on it right here, sky@cbri.com, and set up an appointment, and I'll be happy to go over it with them.
Okay. And how long does, if anybody's going to be lollygagging and dragging their feet, trying to figure out if they want to do this or not, is there, coming up here to the next first payroll, April 5th, when does everything kind of need to be all uploaded and chosen and confirmed with Voya? What's the last date on that?
So they would want to go on at least by the last week of this month.
Okay.
Yep. Because if they miss that, remember it's quarterly entry. So if they went on in May or June, that wouldn't be till their first pay period in July. So they can enter the plan quarterly. So their first opportunity is their first pay period in April.
Okay. So all right. So April 20th payday, that's too late.
Yep.
If they didn't, okay. All right.
Then
Got it.
what I'm hearing, Dave, is they would have to then wait for the next quarter in order to join the plan.
You're right. So if somebody went on April 25th and was ready to start saving, they could go register, set up their account, but it wouldn't be until the first pay period in July.
Okay. Well, I can't get over everybody gets to kind of self-administer. This is really unique and different for me. So it's really hands-off for me, right? It's everybody's got to manage that themselves, their deferral amounts, fixed percentage, otherwise. Let's say if they enroll, now can they stop for a period of a couple paycheck periods and then resume?
Absolutely. If things are tight and they got 4% going out the door and they need to shut that off, they can turn the 4% off. Absolutely.
That's pretty cool. I like that.
They don't have to wait till the next quarter to start again?
Nope. You can technically change your contribution rate per pay period.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yep.
And I'm certain, we keep talking about apps, but if any of us like me feels a little uncomfortable about using their app with the finances, I'm sure it's just as a nice experience online on the desktop.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, the desktop's even more robust, but the smartphone app just tries to capture as much as it can from the desktop.
Gotcha. Okay. And Laura, you asked, what was the question? You wanted to know if people a certain age, if they can contribute more than others, right?
Yeah. So yeah, because well, it doesn't leave this room, but I'm 61.
Yep.
So I'm able
to
the room,
even though it's recorded on YouTube.
I know, great. Now everybody knows. Oh well, whatever. So I could contribute more, right?
Yes. So the way that works with the IRS says if you are over the age of 50, you have a $6,500 catch-up in 2019. So most participants can defer up to $19,500 on a calendar year. But again, over the age of 50, 6,500 catch-up, then that number goes to 26,000.
Okay.
For 2020, 26,000 for 2020.
Yep, for 2020. It went up a little bit from 2019.
Okay, good to know.
And so our final payroll for the year will be December 5th. If anybody's just kind of time sequencing, time framing things out, that would be the final.
December 20th. Dave, it would be December 20th.
You're right. Okay, that's right. I'm stuck on our old days. December 20th.
Yes, you were.
But nothing could be deferred after that, right? It's all got to go through payroll. If anybody wants to put something in at the last minute, it all has to go through payroll.
Yes, they have to make it by that final pay period in 2020. You got it.
Okay. And all the tax forms, tax statements, everything that everybody needs, does Voya produce those and send them to everyone at the end of the year?
Yeah, so the only tax forms, the only time there's a distributable event is if someone does a rollover or a distribution. So Voya, as the record keeper, is going to send quarterly statements, but there's no tax forms needed unless there's a distributable event. And then the employer, Grimm doesn't need to do anything because we're filing all the DOL and IRS requirements.
And does Voya have? I hope they're kind of a paperless kind of company that everybody that's in these funds, we're not inundated with our mailboxes at home with prospectuses and this and that. Okay.
We encourage people to sign up for quarterly electronic statements to be emailed to them. So the only time they're going to get paper is if they ask for it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, I don't have any other questions. Laura, anything else on your mind?
Nope. I think I heard everything I needed to know.
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome. All right. Well,
Okay.
let me get this converted, and I'll send over all the plan documents that I presented. And David, I'll send that all into an email to you before I leave today.